Oh, I haven't, I'm sorry. You have to wait just a minute because I haven't closed the breakout rooms. That was very bad of me.
There you go.
So I have to give just the, you have to give them another 60 seconds to come in from the breakout rooms. I apologize.
I can't believe you're not perfect, Gareth.
You know that in spades, Natalie.
Yeah.
All right, I think everybody is back. Everybody except one person. There we go, everybody's back. All right. Jan Willis, take it away.
Thank you. This is really a lovely group. I'm glad that you're all here. And thank you for having me here. I appreciate it. It's quite an honor. So I don't know what the title was. Shantideva's Way. Oh, did you catch the double entendre? Shantideva is the author of the text that's known as the Way of the Bodhisattva. Shantideva's Way. It's kind of special, and that's what I want to talk about today. Both Shantideva himself as author and the text. The text is all about the course, the activities that a bodhisattva should engage in. One who wants to attain complete awakening. Can everyone hear me okay? All good.
Thumbs up on Zoom. Can Zoom hear okay?
Good, good, good. Yes, oh, thank you. A bodhisattva is one who wishes, has her aim focused upon awakening. Both heart and mind of a bodhisattva is focused upon complete awakening. In Sanskrit, the word is the same. Chitta means both heart and mind. They are so closely connected that often scriptures say they are like two wings of a bird. The heart of a bodhisattva, compassion, and the mind of a bodhisattva, wisdom, the wisdom which liberates us, are like the two wings of a bird. One cannot fly, the bird cannot fly without both. There are many, many stories throughout Buddhist literature of beings who tried to attain awakening, but had only one wing working. Total disaster. You need both, heart and mind, compassion and wisdom. Shantideva's text is famous because it charts the whole way, the entirety of the Mahayana path to complete awakening. One philosopher responsible for taking Buddhism to Tibet in the 11th century was a man named Atisha. Atisha said one can chart 3 different aims that human beings have when it comes to spiritual matters. The first aim Atisha called the lowest aim, and that aim is to gain liberation from suffering. Ah, you say that's the lowest? Yes. Atisha says humans want that. They want a higher rebirth. This characterization is so large, it encompasses most of the world's religions, right? We think of heaven. We want to avoid hell, but we'd like heaven if we're Christian. If we're Muslim, we want the paradise, right? So Atisha says the lowest spiritual aim is for higher rebirth. Get out of suffering, get higher rebirth. The middling aim, he calls it, is to really push all suffering aside, to get out of that. I sort of blended the first one. But to get out of all suffering. And the teacher says, this is the beginning of the Buddhist path. That begins with renunciation. You are so fed up with samsara, the world of suffering. Not synonymous with the world, but the world of suffering. You're so fed up with it that you decide firmly to renounce it. That's the beginning of the Buddhist path, he says. And that's just middling. But the highest scope is to attain complete liberation in order to liberate others. That's the highest. If you have that aim, then you're beginning the Mahayana path. The Mahayana path begins with bodhicitta. Okay? So Shantideva's written a text in which he lays out the bodhisattva path, which is the Mahayana path, which is the only path that has this emphasis on being non-selfish. That is, I want to attain liberation in order to liberate others. That's mine. Well, a thought like that is pretty rare. Because it requires us to put others before ourselves. Oh, that's rare. That's so rare. We know about it because it actually happens in our ordinary lives. But it happens like a flash of lightning in a dark sky. It's gone. So what are examples of when it happens? Parents know about it. Kids in danger, grab them. You gotta move. All right? When you think more about that child, this is literal. You're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about the child. That's bodhicitta. That's the arising of bodhicitta. It's selfless. It's thinking about another over oneself. Get somebody out of the way of a speeding car. What Boy Scouts do. I guess Girl Scouts do, I don't know. That flash, when there's selflessness, and you're thinking more of another than yourself. Since I'm a Baptist Buddhist, I'm tempted to tell you here the parable of the Good Samaritan. Maybe later. Martin Luther King asks, by virtue of what is the Good Samaritan good? And he's good, why? Because he thinks more of another than himself. Maybe in Q&A. So, some centuries before Shantideva's 8th century, his activities were mainly conducted during the first half of the 8th century, yes. He dies in 763. Tikahara. Oh. But several centuries before that, a person you've no doubt heard of, famous Mahayana philosopher named Nagarjuna. Sometimes we say Nagarjuna. It's just one long I. Nagarjuna. Naga plus Arjuna. He conquered the Nagas. 2 A's together, as long as they can come. Nagarjuna. That head of the Madhyamaka school, Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna wrote a little text, little shastra, and it's called the Bodhicharya Sambhara. It's a text that talks about the provisions necessary for a bodhisattva to have while that bodhisattva is on the path. What should you carry with? I think it's a great little text, but that's not why I mention it. I mention it because it's got this great way of looking at what a bodhisattva is and does. And one verse in this text, Nagarjuna says, it's verse 142, he says, how can one discern a genuine bodhisattva? How can you tell a true bodhisattva? Nagarjuna says, a genuine bodhisattva is one who works for the sake of dharma, not for self-benefit. A true or genuine bodhisattva works for virtue, not fame. A genuine bodhisattva thinks only of beings and liberating them, not of personal happiness. You can also see these 8 worldly dharmas, the 4 pairs. But he ends by saying, and a bodhisattva does all these things in secret. Woo! In secret. That makes it a little tougher. You know we want to give things. Please, Garrett, accept this tea from me. And we not only want him to take it, we want him to tell somebody we gave it to him. Okay? Don't we now? We sort of do things like give a gift, but we hope word gets around that we were kind and generous. Right? A bodhisattva conducts all these virtuous activities in secret. Whew! Makes it seem hard. So he does it in secret. Okay. So, I'm going to talk about Shantideva. Oh, Shantideva, whose name means Lord of Peace. Lord of Peace. He was calm as anything, laid back. 8th century. There's pre-story and there's after-story, but the main story is this. Shantideva became a monk at the great university in Nalanda, where Nagarjuna had been and the Madhyamaka comes from, and thousands of teachers. Can you not hear me?
Rosemary, could you go on mute, please?
Technology.
Yeah.
Gotta love it.
Somebody on. Keep talking, I'll figure it out.
So Shantideva is a monk at this illustrious university in India, Nalanda. And his ordination name is Shantideva. Had been Shantivarman, his native name. And then he becomes a monk there. But he's a notorious monk. He's known as being a good-for-nothing, ne'er-do-well. The monks actually disliked him, all of them. They didn't like him at all. They didn't just call him lazy. They certainly didn't call him by his name. They called him, all of them, called him universally, Busuku. Busuku. Now that means sort of he's lazy. They say, this monk, where's he come? He doesn't do any of the things we're supposed to do. He's part of this community. You know, we all give talks, we all rotate this, monastic life. He doesn't do any of them. Busuku actually means he's fit for only eating, from the Sanskrit bhuj, bakshish, to beg. He's good for only eating, su, Sleeping from swapna is a dream. It's good for only, what did I say? Eating, sleeping, and defecating. That's what all the monks in the Grand University in Nalanda call Shantideva. But now remember, Shantideva is Lord of Peace. He doesn't fight back. He just says, I like to eat. That's no cause to put me out. The monk said to the abbot, this guy needs to go. This Busaku needs to go. He's not a monk. He's not respectful. He's not doing anything we should do. He doesn't ever do his talks, for example. We rotate. He should do it. So they scheme to set him up to fail and to be humiliated. Can you imagine monks behaving like, boy, he was a character they just did not like. This is Shantideva, the Lord of Peace, the author of our text. So they set up a test. They built a throne that they thought it would be impossible for anybody to get on top. And then they heard this voice. It was Shantideva already up there. He says, okay, you want me to give a talk. Would you like it to be something old or something new? Meanwhile, the monks have invited the king of the area, all the high dignitaries. They're going to really make Shantideva feel badly when he fails so miserably in front of everybody. Shantideva says, you want old, you want new? And they all yell, tell us something new. Tell us something new. And he says, okay. And he begins the first verse of Bodhicharya Avatar. He must have been doing something. He must have been doing something. Maybe he was doing all this in secret. You know, we are so quick to judge people. You know, so all those monks says, looks like all he does is eat. He eats 5 times more than normal. You know, he sleeps a whole lot through all our congregations, our meetings. And we hear that all he does is make caca. They had no idea. But they called him Busaku. We do that too, don't we? You know, we run into people and we say, you know, does this, does. We judge. All those monks judged Shantideva. They didn't see him at all. They saw what they projected. So Shantideva begins when they say they'd like something new with the first verse of the Way of the Bodhisattva. We should pass out, but we don't have
We're tucked
enough.
underneath.
We have, where is it? It's
Is
here?
it in this folder?
Oh. So one of the iconographic forms of Shantideva, one of the most famous, shows him this way. We sort of had color. Yeah, you're being passed out. We don't have enough, actually.
Yeah.
So you can share. Always share. We all share. I'm sorry we don't have enough. If people know people, they can make more copies and give them to people if they'd like afterwards. The reason, if you look at this form, it's going around, you'll see that Shantideva is floating above the cushion. You see that? So he starts reciting this text, but other people don't have it. Can we speed it on around? He starts reciting the text, which is variously said to have 1,000 verses, maybe 700 verses. And this is what academics do. They count. So there's 918 verses in Shantideva's text divided into 10 chapters. Oh. You see? So you see there's this sage, and what this shows, sometimes you see monks around at the foot. Okay. Listening. And on some of those you see the monks going like this. Because when Shantideva, he recites all these verses, you know, by rote, he's just, and it's poetry. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful poetry. And so everybody's spellbound, mouths open, you can imagine. And also, they're scribbling, trying to record what he says. But it said that when he got to the 9th chapter, was a chapter on wisdom, at verse 34, chapter 9, he suddenly starts to levitate. And then the monks are going, and people are trying to hear, and they're scribbling. And Shantideva, and some say Manjushri, his main yidam, his main tutelary, both of them appear, and they both rise until they can no longer be seen. Only Shantideva's slight voice was heard till the person recorded the dedication. Tikha. So this is just one of the iconographic forms, most famous of Shantideva, seen floating away on from his cushion. Don't play him short. No bosaku here. This is something really special. Shantideva. Tikha. Now let me say something about the text that you might find interesting. Nagarjuna also. Nagarjuna set up, say this, Shantideva knew Nagarjuna well. He, in the wisdom chapter, he expounds the Madhyamaka view, for example. One of the reasons the text is so well known in the Tibetan tradition is because they say that Shantideva's explication of Madhyamaka philosophy is a really good one, especially Chandra Kirti's point of view. Anyway, how many of you have read this? All right, you might have a red copy, right? This was 1996, 97. So 3 of you. Okay. You've read commentaries on it, I know, Gareth. The red copy came out, I think, in 205 or 206. This came out in 1997. And it's translated, this is translation I prefer. Hands down. People will say, well, you know, there's one more accurate. In English, there's 7 or 8, now 9, I think, in English translation of The Way of the Bodhisattva, Bodhicharya Avatar. But this one was done by the Paimakara, Tibetan and Sanskrit. They get you on these. It's Pema in Tibetan, but it's Padmakara group. Padmakara translation group's translation is the one I prefer. Why? Because they translated poetically. They translated as poetry. So Andrew Skilton and Vesna Wallace and other translations are okay maybe for accuracy, but they're not poets. These folk are poets, so this is the one I suggest you get if you want to get it. The Way of the Bodhisattva, translated by the Padmakara Translation Group. Okay, you can even get it on audio. You know, audiobooks? Now that's great. The head of the Padmakara group, Wolfgang, he's the one reading it. So you can hear the text read. This text became famous because of such great poetry, because it expounds the Buddha way so clearly in poetic form. In the Tibetan tradition, which I'm most familiar with, sometimes the practice is always to recite this aloud, especially in a group. And one person does a few verses, right? And then the next person takes it up. So you're to listen, you're to pay attention. And so one of the ways it's practiced in the Tibetan tradition is people run through fields shouting it, singing it. Why is that? Well, one of the reasons is that chapter 3 of this text, I think it's 18, isn't it? No. 18 is the vows. And in this text it said that, one verse says, even the gnats and grubs and bees hearing this text will certainly attain enlightenment. Of that there is no doubt. So the Mahayana tradition is for everybody who can to hear it. Because even grubs and bees and gnats, if they hear it, will attain enlightenment. Huh? So it's lovely. I once asked the young monk, I saw him running through a field shouting. I said, what were you just doing? I was singing Bodhicharya Avatar. He was so sweet. I said, that's great. Yay. Okay. So back to Nagarjuna verse. There, I was going there. Now, His Holiness Dalai Lama often cites from this text. He gives you so many verses that are straight from Shantideva's Bodhicharya Avatar. Tikaha. Now, as to, so Tikaha, right? I'm overemphasizing the Hindi. Okie dokie. Huh? Uh-huh. How are you doing? Tika, sabai, tika. I go, tika. It's just my thing. Don't worry about it, please. And all is just Tibetan pause. Yes, going along. Okay. It's my habit, so I figure I better explain that. Tika. See? Okay. So Nagarjuna said in a verse that we might say, you might say here as well, I don't know. Nagarjuna gave a little 4-line prayer. So this is 6 centuries before Shantideva, right? But Shantideva used the prayer as a way to structure his text. Okay? Nagarjuna says, may bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise where it has not yet come to be. And where it has arisen, may it never fail but be maintained. And where it's maintained, may it grow and flourish ever more and more. Shantideva divides this text into 10 chapters. And the first 3 chapters are emphasizing, may bodhicitta, precious and sublime, arise. You know, it's a rare thought. May it arise. Shantideva uses the first 3 chapters of his book to talk about the rarity of it, and then in chapter 3 to say, it's arisen, take hold of it. Chapter 3 is Bodhisattva vows. Take hold of it. Do a ceremony. And our Bodhisattva vows, the ceremony is described here. The ritual for taking Bodhisattva vows is described in the 3rd chapter of Shantideva's book. It's called the famous Bodhisattva vows. You know them, no doubt. May I be a... Do you say this?
We'll do it at the end, yeah.
Can you say it?
Beings are numberless, have out to free them, delusions are inexhaustible, how to end them. Dharma gates are boundless, have how to enter them, the Buddha ways unsurpassable, have how to become it. Hikaha.
Have you heard this? And you say it in conjunction with that. May I be a guard for those who are protectorless, a guide for those who journey on the road. Have you heard this? For those who wish to go across the water, may I be a boat, a raft, a bridge. May I be an island for those who yearn for land, a lamp for those who who long for light, and those who need a resting place, a bed for those who need a servant, his slave. May I, and then the ritual for taking the vows, when His Holiness gives them, there are these lines, verse 3, chapter 3. So of the 10 verses, there's 9, the first 9 chapters, and Shantideva goes 1, 2, 3. The third chapter is the most important in that group. And then 4, 5, 6. The 6th chapter is most important. Then 7, 8, 9. 9 is the wisdom chapter. Okay, most important. And so he goes dum dum bum, dum dum bum, dum dum bum, and it goes with each line of Nagarjuna's prayer. May it arise, may it be maintained. This is how you maintain it, Shantideva says. May it increase. This is how it's increased. So he gives you everything you need. So the ritual of taking bodhisattva vows, in the Tibetan tradition, this is how we do it. There are actual verses here. And His Holiness, if you see him online giving these, he will do exactly the same thing. So you do these, may I be a guard for those who are protectives. And then you get to chapter 3, verse 23, which says, just as all the Buddhas of the past embraced the awakened attitude, and in the precepts of the Bodhisattva step by step abode and trained, just so and for the benefit of being. And when you're actually having the ritual, you're told by the teacher, add before this line, add, O teachers, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas all, just as all the Buddhas of the past, and you do the verse. So the ritual is you imagine all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas before you, and you take the vow. It's given in 2 verses. And then after you've done that, there's a concluding verse that ends the ritual, and it's a celebration. It says, it's chapter 3, verse 26, and it goes, today my life has borne fruit. This human state now has been well assumed. Today I take my birth in Buddha's line and have become the Buddha's child and heir. Right? I've taken the vows, and today I've become Buddha's heir. I'm going to be a bodhisattva. I'm really going to hope to stick with it. That's the first line of Nagarjuna's poem. Bodhicitta, so rare. Now that I know that, now that there's actually a ritual, let me pledge myself to try to hold on to it. Not just have it fleeting, right? I'm going to try to hold on to it. Then Nagarjuna's prayer says, and then if I manage to recognize it and to hold on, let me see how I maintain it. So then he goes through the paramitas, the paramis, the paramitas. He goes through energy and virya and watchfulness, and then chapter 6. And what is chapter 6? Famous, famous, famous. Chapter 6, heavy duty. Chapter 6, first verse. Chapter 6 is the chapter on patience. First verse, Shantideva says, good works gathered in 1,000 aeons. Deeds like generosity, other bodhisattva deeds, are offerings to the Buddhas, the blissful ones. A single flash of anger shatters them all. Ooh! In 1,000 aeons, you could have been goody good shoes. But you get angry, so angry that you wish to harm another sentient being. It's all demolished, all your good works. 1 second of wanting to harm. Now that's tough.
Just giving you, it's 20 past. So keep going.
Thank you. I'm not going to finish. Because I have 2 minutes. Right? That seems so heavy. I don't know about you, but driving over, I go, it's green. Right? Impatience, right? Patience is a biggie. So the commentaries on this chapter in particular, They say things like, His Holiness's commentary says, healing anger. It's all about anger, right? How do you stem that? And then you hear all the issues. But some anger is justifiable. Well, yeah, but you don't want to hold on to it. It can spur you. It can inspire you. It can say, that's not right. I'm going to do something about it. But if you hold on to the anger, you're doomed. Don't claim you're a bodhisattva. Don't even claim you're on the Buddha's path. Right? Because, let me just would say, because, pronounce all the vowels, because, my teacher, my guru, because, what is the dharma about? What's the first principle? Dhammapada 183. Do no harm. Practice what is good. Discipline the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. Chapter 6 begins with, if you want to do harm to another sentient being, don't call yourself a Buddhist. Buddhism is all about doing no harm. So you may have to find creative ways to change things. I'm all for that. Non-violent ways to change things. Non-violence does not mean becoming a doormat. It's non-violent resistance. So don't leave the resistance part out. It's about changing things. I mean, okay, some things are about changing things, but it must be non-violent. So you don't even wish the person harm, because your mind's a lot faster than your physical action. So, that's a famous, famous verse from this text. Good works gathered in 1,000 aeons, such as deeds of generosity and so forth, are offerings to all the blissful. A single flash of anger shatters them. I want to, so then we go on in this, the wisdom chapter, and there are many commentaries just on the wisdom chapter itself. Many commentaries. Children, no time to lose. Not Tupten children. Pema children. Pema children. No time to lose is a commentary on this text. His Holiness's commentary on the whole text is called A Flash of Lightning in the Dark Sky. Right? Bodhisattva so rare. His Holiness's teacher for this text. His Holiness says about the text, now this is an endorsement. If you write books, you hope to get one day. His Holiness, who is seen by Tibetans as the very embodiment of compassion itself, right? Is living compassion, right? His Holiness endorses the Padmakara's translation. He says, if I have any understanding of compassion, His Holiness, you in, aren't you? No, sorry, I'm okay. His Holiness says, if I have any understanding of compassion and the practice of the Bodhisattva path, it is entirely on the basis of this text that I possess it. Woo! My goodness, it's a special text. Really, His Holiness? His Holiness in 2013 was the last time, 2013 maybe, when he was at Emory, answering students' questions in the gym. You know, somebody put on index cards and he was answering in the gym, 10,000 people. So I got there, I was there, but I didn't want to go in yet, so I came sort of late. His Holiness was already on the stage and all these thousands of people there. And I walk in and there was a young black security guard. So he looked at me and he says to me, hey, do you know that guy? Pointing to the Dalai Lama, right? I looked and I said, yeah, I know him. He said, I don't know, strangest thing. He walked by here and he looked at me and he smiled. He said, something happened. Something happened. I said, great. Something happened. He got zoomed, he got zapped by His Holiness's smile. So I want to say some of these verses are so commonly said by His Holiness. His Holiness always says, for example, as long as space endures and as long as there are beings, may I too remain to help cure the suffering of beings. My favorite verse from this text is one that says, it's not only pretty poetry, it seems to me it just says true things that are true, and you think about them. One verse in it's 129, I think it's chapter 8, 129. Also Baptist Buddhist, you like chapter and verse.
Yeah.
In 129, it says, all the joy the world contains has come from wishing happiness for others, while all the misery the world contains has come from wishing happiness for oneself alone. Just these little nuggets that seem to me so spot on. All the misery the world contains has come from wishing happiness for myself alone. That's enough. No, it isn't. And we all know it's not. We all know it's not. Right? So he says it in 4 lines. Pretty remarkable, I think. So I always come with lots of notes. Never look at them. And I've run out of time. So